he's proven, I mean, there's question marks with every single horse from the U.S. contingent. You have Summer Bird, too. He hasn't been on synthetic, so we don't know what we're going to get from him, who's one of the top contenders in this group, too. So interesting. Where are you going to wind up in the Classic?
Well, it's a small contingent. There's only a couple slated to come over, with Master Craftsman going in the dirt mile, so I'm going with the World. We'll take down the big one. It's going to be back-to-back years in the Classic for the World team.
So you're going with Rip Van Winkle?
And I'm going with Rip Van Winkle.
All right, so rack one up for the World to get things started off here on our U.S. versus the World show. He's going to be a pretty heavy favorite in that race, too, right?
I would imagine so, yeah. Zenyatta will probably be the second choice behind him, I would imagine. But, yeah, it's going to be a great race.
Well, everyone lining up at the Ladies Classic on Friday is very, very happy to hear the news that came out the other day that she is considering and definitely leaning towards Saturday in the Breeders' Cup Classic. On Friday, this is the main event, mile and an eighth. And we don't have Rachel Alexandra in this race, but we do have another very good 3-year-old filly by the name of Careless Jewel. She lost her debut effort at Keeneland. She's since reeled off 5 consecutive victories, included 3 graded stakes.
Yeah, she's a one-way type, though. She likes to go to the front and improve her position. And when you look through these early pre-entries, there's not a lot of pace in this race. And Robert Landry, who worked till last week, Tuesday at Santa Anita, was very happy with her 6-furlong breeze. And I think, you know, with the lack of pace in this race, she could do exactly what she did here in the Cantillia Stakes at Philadelphia, excuse me, and just walk away from the field, winning off and drawing by 3.5 lengths that day.
Middle of the racetrack, it's just Genda. Cat Moves is in between horses. Here comes Bon Jovi Girl now with a late run. But it's Careless Jewel mid-stretch. She's in front by 3.5, getting a little tap of the whip there. Bon Jovi Girl on the outside second. But they come to the finish. It will be Careless Jewel. She gets her job done today. Careless Jewel strides home a convincing 3.5 length winner.
She has just been dominating the competition. She wins the Alabama by 11. She won the Delaware Oaks 7.25, and then she wins that Cotillion by 3.5. They were considering her connections, putting her to rest for the year, but she ran so good in that race. They feel she has more in the tank, so they said, why not?
I think that's the right move, especially with Zenyatta now electing to go towards the Classic against the boys. I think Careless Jewel deserves to be in there, and she'll be a short price as well. As far as the World goes, Rainbow View. Interesting selection here. Rainbow View is owned by George Strawbridge, the same owner as Forever Together. That is the reason why she is in this race and not competing against her stablemate in the filly and mare turf. I always thought...
Well, 1.5 miles, too, a little bit too long for her,
That's
right?
exactly right, Greg.
I mean, it's 1.25 miles, right?
1.25 miles, I thought was stretching her. She appeared to be a very, very good 2-year-old in Europe. She was champion 2-year-old. I thought 1 mile to 1.1 miles was her top distance. She surprised me in the E.P. Taylor last out when she ran second, going 1.25 miles at Woodbine. But I think she's a very interesting play. 1.1 miles might be right up her alleyway, and the synthetic surface shouldn't be a problem. She's out of a Del Mar Oaks winner by Dynaforma. She can handle anything.
All right, you look at that U.S. team, and really, Music Note maybe should slide to that other side. She is part of Team Godolphin in here. Talk about her. Her last couple of starts, 7 furlongs and then 1.1 miles. She hasn't faced big fields, but she's been very impressive against them.
Yeah, I mean, the fact she ran third in this race last year, I think makes her major a player. Her stablemate Cocoa Beach was second. So Godolphin's entry here, Cocoa Beach and Music Note last year ran second and third against Zenyatta, the best filly in the country. So this makes her a player here. And like I said, every time Zenyatta is moving away from this group, it makes it a lot easier for the likes of Music Note, Cocoa Beach, and Careless Jewel.
We heard little rumblings from Barry Abrams, too. So he wanted Lethal Heat to run on Friday in this race, and then in the turf sprint as well. Is he still actually considering that?
He's absolutely considering it, yeah. He's got Lethal Heat cross-ended in the turf sprint, as Greg mentioned. And, I mean, if there's one trainer anywhere in the world that could make a move like that, it's Barry Abrams. I can't question it. Anyone else did it, I might question it, but him, he's had success doing it. I couldn't get away with it.
Yeah. And Life is Sweet, obviously, stablemate of Zenyatta, been running second fiddle to her. Good enough to compete in this field and be there at the end and win this race.
Yeah, she's good enough. I mean, she's right there 2 lengths behind Lethal Heat and Cocoa Beach last time, so that makes her a player. She is just very, very happy to get away from Zenyatta.
All right, where are you going to wind up in here?
I'm going to go with the U.S. It's one-sided. It's a game of numbers here in the Ladies Classic. You got too many powerful, strong U.S. entrants up against Rainbow View. I'm sorry for the world, but if you're pinning all your hopes in this race on Rainbow View, it's going to be a tough mountain to climb here.
Why are you sorry for the world?
Just because
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. They got plenty of bullets, but they're not going to win this one.
Don't feel sorry for them. They had a pretty good year last year, and you already like them in the Classic. We're going to be back. We're going to talk more. We're going to talk the TVG Mile when we come back. Stay tuned. We are back on the U.S. versus the World show. Greg Wolf and Simon Bray. You can contact us on our community website, community.tvg.com. It's bringing racing fans together, and some of them put together some Pick 4 posses, things like that. But to certainly make your voice heard, it is free to become a member of the community, and we would love to hear from you. Click on TVG Viewer Mailbox. All right, back on our U.S. versus the World show. Greg Wolf, Simon Bray. We have Graham Smith as well from Timeform joining us in just a moment. We move on to the TVG Breeders' Cup Mile. And Simon, the champ is back in this race. We know that, Goldikova, obviously, although she was just defeated last time out. We'll talk about that in a moment. We were second and third, the U.S. in this race last year. Kip DeVille, what's the script? Do you think it was a better U.S. group in this race last year or this year?
I think probably last year was a little better group. I mean, What's the Script is back in here again, but he's not
the same horse,
Same
right?
horse, that's exactly right. And history dictates that the international contingent do very well in this race. In the 7 times that the mile has been run in California in the Breeders' Cup, the Europeans have won it 5 times. Last Tycoon, Mies Spinning World, 6 Perfections, and Goldikova. You put that name together, that's a very, very awesome group. And then when you look through here, I mean, Cowboy Cow, impressive last time, but was getting out. Just Enough Humor, disappointed. Again, the weight, the pendulum is leaning definitely to the internationals here.
All right, and let's look at some of the U.S. contingent in this group. Garrett Gomez, there's going to be change on Courageous Cat. He is going to pick up the mount on that horse, who won the Hall of Fame back at Saratoga for Bill Mott, and then was just defeated in the Jamaica at 1 1/8 miles.
This would be an amazing training performance if Courageous Cat could win the Breeders' Cup Mile. You got to remember, this was a horse who was running in the maiden special weight ranks back in the middle of June. Now, fast forward the clock about 4 months, and we're going to try and win the Breeders' Cup Mile. That's a tough task for a 3-year-old, but he was very, very impressive in the Jamaica last time out, despite not getting the job done. He went to the lead. This was not a typical ride from Ramon Dominguez. I think that's one of the reasons you see Gomez on in here. Bill Mott talked about it after the race. He was close to the pace, midway down the backside, taken back off the pace, and then asked to run on again at the end of the race. This was a very stop-start performance from Courageous Cat. No fault of his own, I think. So Garrett Gomez will have him more forwardly placed here and won't do that stop-start asking of Courageous Cat. That's very hard for a young horse. You asked him to run, you take him back, then you asked him to run again.
Well, let's check in with Graham Smith now from Timeform. And Graham, you have the champ coming back in Goldikova in this race, but everyone wants to know, she'd reeled off 3 in a row, and then she's defeated last time out. Were there excuses for her in that race, or is she starting to tail off a little bit?
Well, that was a wobble, wasn't it? It was a definite wobble at Lawshaw in the Prix de la Forêt, and obviously that's a slight concern. I'm willing to forgive it, I honestly am, because she's got so much in hand on the form book of the other Europeans. I think she's about 7 pounds clear of Delegator on the Timeform figures. And usually she's not ridden how she was at Lawshaw when she was beaten. That day, they tracked across from a very, very wide draw, and I think they just used Goldikova up very early on. She didn't have an awful lot left for the finish. Hopefully, all things being equal, she'll be much better drawn at Santa Anita this time around, and if she can take up a handy position just off the leaders, I'd be very, very confident she'd have too much for the likes of Delegator, Zakinto, and Gladiatorus. And I'm afraid to say it, guys, but I really wouldn't fear any of the Americans.
I mean, her performance in the Jacques Lemarois race that we're just looking at there was dominating. I mean, if she repeats that in the Breeders' Cup Mile, she crushes this group again. But that's the question mark. Did she peak too early? Is she a midsummer filly and she's not quite the same as she was last year, Graham? Or do you just think, throw out that last race, and even if she brings a B or C game, she still beats this group, right?